The broadcast of despair, the galaxy was silent, filled with static echoes of lost wars and broken worlds. On the trade planet of Kalor, the slave markets were alive with cruel laughter, glowing cages and the smell of fear. Every kind of alien could be seen there: merchants, soldiers, criminals, and the broken ones who were for sale. Among them sat a girl with dull gray skin and eyes that once shone like starlight. Now dimmed by hunger and hopelessness, her name was Lyra, and she was known as the last of her kind. Once her people had been proud and free, but war had erased them, their home burned to ash, and their name forgotten. For years she had been traded, beaten, and starved, until even the traders called her worthless. Now she sat in the corner of a metal cage, weak, thin, her wrists scarred by old chains. No one looked at her anymore, no one cared. To the galaxy, she was just another failed experiment of evolution, a mistake that refused to die. That morning, a public auction began. Broadcast across hundreds of star systems, a loudspeaker shouted, "Next!" One remaining slave of the extinct Vishar race, half dead but still alive, starting bid. Nothing. Crowds laughed, pointing at her as if she were an animal. A merchant spat and said she won't even live a day. Not worth the air she breathes. The announcer kicked her cage, demanding she stand, but her legs trembled. Her voice came out as a whisper. "Please, no more." The audience roared with laughter, and the cameras zoomed closer, broadcasting her tears to every screen in the system. The broadcast of despair had begun. Across the galaxy, millions watched, some amused, some indifferent, but somewhere far away, aboard a Terran Federation ship orbiting the same sector. A human officer named Captain Aaron Holt saw the transmission. He leaned forward in shock, watching the weak alien girl tremble before the mob. Around him, the bridge crew went silent. "What is this?" one asked. "A live slave auction," Aaron replied coldly. "And we're watching a being beg for mercy while the galaxy laughs." There was anger in his eyes, the kind that came from deep moral pain. Humans had long outlawed slavery, but the rest of the galaxy still saw it as business. Aaron clenched his fist. "Open a channel," he ordered moments later. His voice echoed across the auction, transmitted from orbit, calm and deep. "This is Captain Aaron Holt of the Terran Federation. Stop this broadcast." The alien announcer froze. The crowd turned, looking at the sky as the shadow of a human ship covered the marketplace. The laughter stopped, replaced by fear. "Terrans?" someone hissed. "Why are they here?" The announcer stammered. "Captain Holt, this is legal trade. You have no—" "I'm ending it," Aaron interrupted. "You're selling life, and humanity doesn't trade in that." Without another word, the Terran ship landed, engines shaking the ground. The soldiers stepped out, armored, silent, and focused. The crowd backed away as Aaron walked through the smoke, his coat fluttering behind him. He stopped before Lyra's cage, and for the first time in years she looked up, her eyes meeting a human's gaze. There was no disgust, no cruelty, only quiet sadness and something she could not understand: compassion. The announcer laughed nervously. "She's worthless, human. Take her if you want. She'll die before morning." Aaron said nothing. He opened his pouch, dropped a single Terran credit on the table, and said, "Sold." The aliens laughed again. "1 credit for a corpse," they mocked. But Aaron turned, looked at the cameras still recording, and spoke firmly. "She's not a slave anymore." The words hit harder than any weapon. The entire market fell silent. The broadcast continued live across the stars, and for the first time in history, the galaxy saw a human buying not to own but to free. Aaron bent down and unlocked her cage. Lyra flinched, expecting another blow, but instead she felt a gentle hand lift her up. "You're safe now," he said softly. Her lips trembled. "Why would a human save me?" Aaron looked at her, eyes steady. "Because we were once like you." Behind them, the alien crowd whispered, shocked by what they had seen. Cameras continued rolling as the human ship lifted off, carrying the last alien slave away from her cage and into the stars. But not everyone watching was silent, far beyond Kalor. In the dark halls of the Dravic Empire, the same empire that once enslaved Lyra's people, a war council watched the footage. An admiral turned to his subordinates and said coldly, "The humans have interfered again. They have broken our market." His eyes narrowed. "Send word to the fleets. Prepare a message." As the Terran ship entered orbit, Aaron looked at the sleeping alien girl on the medbed. He didn't know that his single act of kindness had just declared a new kind of war, one not fought for power, but for the soul of the galaxy, and somewhere deep in her dreams, Lyra whispered the first words of hope she had ever spoken. Maybe humanity still remembers what mercy means. The ship of mercy. When Lyra opened her eyes, the world was quiet. Gone were the cruel voices, the smell of rot, and the laughter of the markets. Instead, she heard a soft hum, steady and calm, like the heartbeat of a giant creature. She was lying on a clean bed wrapped in white sheets, surrounded by glowing medical machines. For a moment she thought she had died, but then she saw him. The human who had bought her freedom, Captain Aaron Holt, stood near the window, looking out at the stars, his uniform neat, his posture calm but heavy with thought. When he turned to look at her, his voice was gentle. "You're safe now. You're on the Terran ship Resolve." Lyra tried to speak, but her throat was dry. Her voice cracked like breaking glass. Why did you bring me here?" Aaron poured her a cup of water, handed it to her, and said simply, "Because no one deserves to die in chains." She drank slowly, her hands shaking. It had been years since anyone had treated her like a person. Her eyes darted around the room, seeing humans moving quietly. Doctors, engineers, officers, each one giving her space. Not commands. It felt strange, frightening even. For days she stayed silent, afraid that kindness was another kind of trick. But the humans never raised their voices, never hit her, never forced her to kneel. Instead, they brought her food, clothes, and warm blankets. She would sit by the window watching the stars pass, wondering if her people could see her from the afterlife. Sometimes Aaron would join her, sitting beside her without saying a word, just watching the void in silence. It was during one of these quiet nights that she finally asked, "Why do humans care about slaves? The galaxy says you are dangerous." Aaron smiled faintly. "Maybe we are," he said, "but we remember what it feels like to be broken. Humanity was once enslaved by its own greed, by war, by fear. We learned the hard way that mercy is strength." His words confused her. "You fight for others even when you gain nothing?" she asked. He looked at her and said, "Because freedom means nothing if only one species has it." Her heart trembled at those words. For the first time in her life, she felt something new, a flicker of warmth deep inside her chest. Hope. The crew treated her wounds, taught her basic Terran words, even smiled at her. But not everyone in the galaxy was smiling. Thousands of light years away, in the command fortress of the Dravic Empire, the leaders watched the broadcast of Kalor again and again. "The humans have made a mockery of our laws," hissed the Dravic chancellor, a tall creature with red scales and burning yellow eyes. "They buy our slaves, they interfere in our trade. They must be reminded of their place," and the general nodded. "Shall we send a message?" The chancellor smiled darkly. "Yes, send it to Earth itself. Meanwhile, aboard the Resolve, the crew was unaware that their actions had already stirred the hornet's nest. Lyra was slowly recovering, learning to walk again, her legs weak from years of captivity. Every step hurt, but she refused to stop. Aaron would sometimes watch her from the corner of his eye, silently impressed. "She's stronger than she knows," he said to his first officer. The officer nodded. "Captain, the crew admires what you did, but command might not," Aaron sighed. "Command can court-martial me later. Saving one life is worth it." The moment of peace didn't last long. One night, alarms blared across the ship. Red lights flashed, and the voice of the AI filled the air. "Incoming transmission, encrypted high-threat priority." Aaron hurried to the bridge, his crew already tense. "Play it," he ordered. The main screen flickered, revealing a monstrous face. The Dravic Chancellor himself. "Human," the alien hissed, "you have taken what belongs to us. Return the Vishar slave immediately, or we will turn your blue planet to dust." The bridge went silent. Every human froze. Aaron's jaw tightened. "We don't respond to threats," he said quietly. The Chancellor leaned closer, eyes glowing. "You will regret this mercy, human. Your compassion will cost your world dearly." Then the screen went dark. Lyra, who had come to the bridge, stood trembling near the doorway. She had heard everything. Her voice broke. "Because of me, they will attack you." Aaron turned. "It's not your fault." "But they will kill your people," she said, tears running down her face. Aaron stepped closer and placed a hand on her shoulder. "If humanity must stand against cruelty again, then so be it." That night, Lyra sat alone in the observation room watching the stars. She had never known anyone who would risk their life for her. In her heart, she began to feel something powerful, a desire not to be a burden anymore. If humanity would fight for her, She would find a way to be worthy of it. Far away, the Dravik fleets began to move, their engines burning red across the void. Millions of warships preparing for battle. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but a single act of human kindness had already set the stars on fire. And as the Resolve prepared for the long journey home, Lyra whispered to herself, her voice steady for the first time, "I will not be afraid anymore." The storm of stars, the silence of space was heavy. Every crew member aboard the Resolve could feel it, the weight of what was coming. The transmission from the Dravik Empire had spread through every Terran channel. The galaxy watched in disbelief as humans refused to bow. One human ship had defied an empire, all for a single starving alien girl. Lyra sat in the corner of the mess hall, watching the humans move. They laughed softly, worked together, and treated each other like family. It was strange to her, so different from the cruelty she had known. Every time she tried to thank someone, they smiled and said, "We just do what's right." She couldn't understand such a simple answer. To her, right had never existed. Only survival. Captain Aaron stood on the bridge. Staring at the holographic star map, red dots appeared on the outer edges of the Terran border. Dravik fleets, hundreds of ships moving in perfect formation. The communications officer whispered, "They're mobilizing faster than we expected, Captain." Aaron nodded. "They want to make an example of us," his first officer asked. "Should we retreat, sir?" Aaron shook his head slowly. "We don't retreat when someone's life is at stake." In the medbay, Lyra overheard the whispers of fear. She saw the looks on the crew's faces, the quiet determination behind tired eyes. They weren't gods or heroes, they were ordinary humans preparing to face a storm, and somehow that made them even more terrifying to her enemies. Later that night, Aaron found her sitting by the window, staring at the distant stars. "They're coming, aren't they?" she asked quietly. "Yes," he said. "And they'll come for you." Her voice trembled. "Then send me back, Captain. Maybe they'll stop if I surrender." Aaron turned to face her, his expression calm but unshakable. "You are not property, Lyra. Humanity doesn't trade lives." "But they'll die," she whispered, tears forming again. Aaron's voice softened. "Then we'll die doing what's right." The next morning, the alarms rang. "Enemy fleet incoming." "Bearing 27 degrees, shouted the navigator through the viewport. Streaks of red light appeared. Dravik ships, hundreds of them, spreading across the stars like a swarm of fire. Their weapons glowed, charging for war. The Resolve was not a warship, only a patrol cruiser with light armor and minimal firepower. But they stood their ground. Aaron ordered, "All power to shields, alert command," and prepare defensive positions. The crew moved with silent precision. No one panicked, no one fled. Even Lyra could feel it. The strange calm before destruction. On every Terran ship, the same signal echoed across the fleet. It was not a call for surrender, but a simple message that would become legend. "Hold the line, the first shot's hit." Shaking the hull, lights flickered, alarms screamed. The Dravik commander sneered, "Destroy them all. Let the galaxy see what happens when humans interfere." But humans didn't run. They fought back, one ship against 100, moving through debris and chaos like living fire. The crew of the Resolve fought with unity that no empire could match. Lyra watched as humans worked together, one pilot redirecting shields to cover another, one engineer fixing a system with bare hands while fire burned around them. For the first time in her life, she understood what strength truly was, not cruelty, not domination, but the courage to protect even a single fragile life. The Resolve unleashed everything it had, missiles flashing, railguns roaring. For a moment, the Dravik ships hesitated. They had expected fear, not defiance. Aaron stood firm at the helm, shouting orders. "Target their flagship's thrusters. Cut their formation." The humans hit back harder, their precision shocking the enemy. Lyra clutched the console, her heart pounding as explosions painted the void with light. Then came the second wave. Massive capital ships entered the field. Their guns lighting up like small suns, the human fleet began to falter, one ship after another taking heavy damage. On the Resolve, systems failed one by one, sparks flew. The hull screamed under pressure. The navigator shouted, "Captain, we can't hold much longer." Aaron's voice stayed steady. "We hold until we can't." "That's an order." Lyra stood, trembling. "Captain, I know their weaknesses." Aaron turned sharply. "What do you mean?" I was a slave on a Dravik transport. I cleaned their systems. I know their command protocols, she said quickly. Aaron's eyes narrowed. Can you access their frequencies? She nodded, yes. If I can reach the communications bay. He looked at her for a long second, then said, go and don't stop. She ran through smoke and chaos, every corridor shaking. The floor littered with broken panels. Her body ached, her lungs burned, but she didn't stop. Reaching the console, she began typing, her fingers flying across glowing keys. She remembered every detail of her years in captivity. The codes, the frequencies, the pain, and she turned it all into power within seconds. She found the enemy's signal command and looped their transmissions. Dravik ships began to fire on each other, their sensors confused, their captains shouting in panic. On the bridge, Aaron saw it happen. Whoever's doing that, keep it up, he said. Lyra's voice came through the intercom, breathless. I did it, Captain. I did something right. Aaron smiled for the first time that day. You did more than that, Lyra. You saved us. But the victory was short-lived. A massive blast shook the ship, sending half the crew to the floor. The Dravik flagship had locked onto them, its main cannon charging. The light grew brighter, and the sensors screamed. Aaron whispered, brace for impact. The beam struck, and the Resolve vanished in a cloud of fire and silence. The galaxy would remember that day as the beginning of the storm. And deep within the wreckage, one faint heartbeat still pulsed, a sign that humanity's hope was not yet gone. The human who wouldn't fall smoke filled the air. Flames flickered across broken metal. The sound of distant alarms echoed like a heartbeat fading in the dark. The Resolve drifted silently among the wreckage, torn apart but not completely destroyed. In the middle of it all, Lyra opened her eyes, coughing as smoke filled her lungs. Her hands trembled as she pushed away debris, searching for light, for sound, for anyone still alive. The corridor was filled with sparks, red emergency lights glowing weakly. Bodies of humans lay still, some moving faintly, some not at all. Captain, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Captain Aaron. She stumbled over twisted metal until she reached the bridge. The doors were jammed, but she forced them open, her body screaming in pain. Inside, the bridge was shattered, consoles dark, glass cracked, and in the center, Aaron sat slumped over his chair, blood on his uniform. Lyra ran to him, falling to her knees. Aaron, please wake up. He opened his eyes slowly, his face pale but calm. Lyra, he said softly. You made it? Tears filled her eyes. We have to get you out. He shook his head. No, the crew first. Around them, a few humans were still alive, trying to put out fires and stabilize what was left of the ship. Aaron's voice grew weaker. Status report. Main reactor is failing, said the first officer, coughing. Communications are gone, but life support is still holding. Aaron nodded. Then we're not done yet. Lyra couldn't understand. He was bleeding, dying, but still giving orders, still thinking of others. He tried to stand, and she supported him, his weight heavy but his resolve stronger than ever. Seal Deck 3. Move survivors to medbay, he commanded. Sir? We need to abandon ship, said the officer, but Aaron raised his hand. No, not until everyone's accounted for. Even broken and bleeding, he wouldn't leave his people. Lyra felt something change inside her. For so long she had seen humans as legends or monsters, but now she saw the truth. They were fragile, mortal, yet they refused to surrender. They fought not for glory, but for one another. That was humanity's real strength. Suddenly the ship shook again. Another explosion outside. Through the cracked viewport she could see Dravik ships circling like vultures. Preparing the final strike, Aaron gritted his teeth. They're coming back to finish us. He staggered to the controls, using his bloodied hand to activate the ship's emergency systems. We still have weapons, he muttered, not much, but enough to make them bleed. Lyra grabbed his arm. You can't fight, you're hurt. He smiled faintly. We don't stop just because it hurts. The Dravik fleet hailed them again, the Chancellor's voice sneering through the static. Human, surrender, your ship is dead, your kind is weak. Hand over the slave and maybe I'll let you live. Aaron pressed the transmission button and said calmly, You misunderstand us. The Chancellor frowned. What? Aaron's eyes hardened. We don't surrender. Then he cut the line. The Resolve turned its damaged cannons toward the nearest enemy ship. With one last burst of power, the humans fired, the railguns roaring, missiles streaking through the void. One Dravik destroyer exploded. Torn in half, the others opened fire in rage, energy beams cutting through the debris. The Resolve shook violently, but still fought, refusing to die quietly. Lyra helped reload the weapons manually. Her hands blistered, her voice shaking. "They keep coming." Aaron smiled even as blood ran down his cheek. "Then we keep fighting." Hours passed like minutes, the ship breaking apart piece by piece. Every system failing, every engine dead, yet the humans still held their line. When the ammunition finally ran out, Aaron leaned back against the console. Exhausted but proud, he looked at Lyra. "We did it. We made them afraid." Outside, the Dravik fleet hesitated, unwilling to get closer to the burning wreck. Lyra knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. "You can rest now," he smiled weakly. "Not yet. I need to tell you something." She took his hand. Trembling, "What?" he whispered. "Promise me you'll live. Promise me you'll carry what you saw here." "I promise," she said through sobs. Aaron's voice faded. "Then you're free, Lyra. Truly free." His hand grew still. His eyes closing, Lyra screamed, clutching him, refusing to let go. Around her, the surviving crew bowed their heads. A human officer whispered, "He saved us all." Later, when the rescue fleet arrived, they found Lyra sitting beside Aaron's body, her head bowed. She looked up at the humans who entered, her eyes red but fierce. "Captain Holt is gone," one whispered. Lyra stood slowly, her voice steady. "No, he's not gone. He's part of all of you now." The humans saluted their fallen captain as they prepared to leave the wreck. As the ships of the Terran fleet pulled away, the Resolve drifted into the endless dark. A monument of steel and sacrifice, the Dravik Empire watched in silence, unable to understand why humans fought so hard for someone they didn't even know. They didn't see a loss. They saw a warning. The humans had fallen. Yes, but not broken. And somewhere in the quiet of space, Lyra whispered softly to the stars, "I will make them remember you, Aaron Holt, the human who wouldn't fall." The hope of 2 worlds years passed since the day the Resolve burned among the stars. The galaxy still remembered the image, the Terran ship standing alone against an empire, the human captain who refused to surrender. That broadcast had spread across 1,000 worlds, replayed in every colony and outpost. It became known as the last stand of humanity's mercy, and though many still feared humans, far more began to understand them. Lyra lived on Earth now, under blue skies she once thought she would never see. The air was fresh, the sun warm, the people kind, but no matter how peaceful her days became, she could never forget the man who gave her freedom. Every morning she visited the memorial at the Terran Fleet Academy, a monument carved from the steel of the Resolve. At its center stood 2 figures, side by side, a human and an alien, hands clasped, looking toward the stars. Beneath them were the words Aaron Holt had once spoken. "Because we were once like you." Lyra traced the engraved letters with her hand, her eyes shining with quiet sadness. She had learned the human tongue completely, studied their history, their wars, their victories and failures. The more she learned, the more she understood why humanity was feared and respected. They were not the strongest, not the oldest, but they had something no other race possessed: the will to protect even strangers. One day, the Council of Worlds gathered again. Hundreds of species filled the massive chamber, their voices echoing through the hall. The Dravik Empire had come once more not to trade slaves, but to argue that humanity should be punished for defying their laws. Lyra stood among the Terran delegation, wearing the symbol of Earth's Peace Corps upon her chest. When her name was announced, the crowd fell silent. She walked to the center stage, the same girl who once knelt in chains now standing tall before an empire. The Dravik Chancellor sneered, "You are the slave the humans stole from us." Lyra looked up, her voice calm and strong. "No, I am the one they saved," the Chancellor hissed. "You belong to us." Lyra raised her head, her eyes blazing. "I belong to no one." Her words echoed through the chamber. She looked around, her voice carrying across the hall. "Years ago, I was nothing, broken, starving, forgotten, but a human saw me not as property but as life. They gave me hope, they gave me freedom, and in doing so, they gave the galaxy a new light." She pointed toward the stars shown on the chamber's holographic ceiling. Humanity fought not to conquer but to protect. They stood against cruelty when no one else dared, and if that is a crime, then let every world here be guilty with them. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, one by one, alien representatives stood and clapped their hands. Wings or claws, whatever they had to show respect. The sound grew louder, echoing like thunder. Even some of the Dravik soldiers bowed their heads, unable to meet her gaze when the council ended. The Dravik withdrew their armies from the border. Humiliated but silent, the news spread faster than light. The slave had become the voice of freedom. The girl humanity saved had changed the galaxy. That night, Lyra stood once again beneath Earth's stars, gazing up at the black sea of space. She closed her eyes and whispered, "You did it, Aaron. Your mercy reached them all." The wind carried her words gently as if the stars themselves were listening. A young cadet approached from behind. "Ambassador Lyra, the fleet is preparing for departure. The new ship is ready." She smiled softly. "What's her name?" The cadet grinned. "The Resolve 2. In honor of Captain Holt." Her heart trembled. She nodded. "Then let's make sure it carries his spirit." As the massive ship rose from the Earth's surface, engines glowing blue, Lyra stepped aboard. Every corridor reminded her of the past, the smell of steel, the hum of engines, the quiet courage of human hearts. But now she wasn't a prisoner. She was part of the crew, part of the legacy. The ship's AI activated. "Ambassador Lyra, destination." She looked out the viewport and whispered, "Toward the unknown." The stars stretched ahead like rivers of light. For the first time, she didn't feel fear, only purpose. The Resolve 2 left orbit, joining a convoy of human and alien ships flying together for the first time. It was a sight the galaxy had never seen. Species that once enslaved each other now flying side by side. And at the front of the fleet, carved into the hull of the ship, were the same words that had started it all. No chains can bind a soul touched by humanity. As the fleet vanished into the endless night, a small signal pulsed from deep space, old Terran code, repeating the same message again and again. "To all who hear this, humanity stands." Lyra smiled through tears as the stars swallowed their light. The galaxy was no longer just divided by power and fear. It was bound by hope. Hope born from one man's compassion, one girl's courage, and the unbroken spirit of a species that refused to fall. And as the universe turned slowly in silence, humanity's legacy burned brighter than ever. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as the guardians of hope.